What's up, guys? Can you hear me? Just sharing this link in my Discord real fast so we can get more people to join. I can see myself. Okay. That's weird. Alright, now let me go ahead and go back to just OMORI manga. Go to this one. If you're watching this on VOD after it's not live anymore, I'll go ahead and comment what the timestamp is to get right to when the video starts. Bossing my door right now. What's happening? Alright, so I did watch the first like 11 or so minutes of this the other day, and then I stopped because I'm like, oh, this seems like a really good video. We'll go ahead and just do a live reaction. So I'm going to play it for a tiny bit. You can tell me how the audio is compared to my voice. I think I need to turn it down a tiny bit. Oh god, we just jumped to 24 viewers. Hi guys who just joined. We're going to start very soon. I'm just testing the audio real fast. So go ahead and let me know how the video volume is compared to my voice right now. Is that too quiet, too loud, etc., etc.? Oh, the guy who made the video says, I'm not home, but thanks for watching anyway. Don't take the jabs personally. I'll watch the VOD once I get back. I haven't finished it. I'm not sure how much jabs there are. It says the video is a little quiet. All right. How's that? That one all good? All right, I'll play it for now, and then we'll stop it. So there is a lot of amongst like more intricate or more involved OMORI fans. All right, good night, Amethyst. Oh, hi, Fallen Lotus. So amongst more like involved OMORI fans, it seems like a lot of them don't like the manga. I didn't like the first chapter very much, but I liked 2 and 3. I liked the third chapter a lot, actually. I know there's format issues where it's like there's some stuff a game can do that this can't. But the video will go into that, does a good job of that. So let's go ahead and let's check this out.
Christmas 2020 saw the release of OMORI.
Turn up this right here.
Artists become game developer OMOCAT as
There we
the
go.
first game. The game met critical acclaim for its handling of mental illness, friendship, forgiveness, and related topics. Fast forward to today, and reaping the rewards of OMORI's success, as well as perhaps feeling low overconfidence, OMOCAT announced and subsequently released an official serialized manga adaptation of the game. A new way to enjoy the beloved story.
Still a lot of quiet. All right, I'll turn this up to like 38.
One that promises to attract both newcomers and old fans alike. Just one minor problem.
Oh.
It doesn't work. Conceptually, OMORI can only work as a video game. That's it. That's my argument. And hey, don't take my word for it. Take it from OMOCAT herself.
But the more the story developed, the more the cutscenes came to me as game scenarios. The same thoughts kept occurring
Why is her voice so cute?
to me. This moment would work better as a game, or it would be better if the audience had a choice here.
Then what? The manga adaptations of video games are nothing new. Before Pokemon had its first anniversary, it was already being adapted into a manga format. When adapting any kind of story, especially as drastically as this, the story must be altered to accommodate the change in mediums. In some circumstances, adaptations across mediums can be fine. Amazon Prime's The Boys is a recent example of how a new take on an old series can improve upon the original.
I agree. The Boys show, like I read a tiny bit of the comic and I didn't like it very much.
You are under a misconception.
However, good adaptations must offer something unique from their source material. The issue with OMORI is that its story, which is its most beloved aspect, is dependent on being told through a video game. As of the time of writing, the manga is not complete, but that does not matter. What I wish to convey through this video is that no matter how long the OMORI manga goes on for, or how you may feel about it, it is doomed to be It has nothing to do with the execution, and everything to do with the concept. The number of changes necessary are not trivial. They are so numerous, as a matter of fact, but the final product you'd end up with is not a different way to experience the story. No, it's just worse. Manga and video games are two wildly different mediums. Manga is a fantastic medium and has excelled thanks to a long list of factors, but that is not the point of this video. Much of the hype surrounding the OMORI manga has been built on false expectations. The OMORI manga was never necessary, and nor is it a substitute for the
What the hell?
Especially since many fans, who really should know better, mistakenly believe that unlike some similar-ish games, OMORI's story can supposedly be told outside of a video game.
I'm so glad you feel that way. Otherwise, I'd have dragged that here tonight.
The original game is
I think that yeah, no, there's definitely going to be inherent problems though, but yeah, he'll go over that.
going anywhere. Actually. It only goes to show how
Okay, I remember that. So, OMORI on Xbox Game Pass was removed with no public explanations or plans to add it back. So, my tinfoil hat theory for that, which I don't think is much of a tinfoil hat theory, I think that because Microsoft likes to be squeaky clean about this kind of stuff, I think they just saw the old OMOCAT tweets and just quietly took it off the store and didn't want to talk about it. And if OMOCAT talked about it, it would have been embarrassing for her too, so it was better to just not bring attention to it. That's what I think was the reason, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
It only goes to show how purposeless the manga actually is. But don't forget, the manga was made with the explicit intention of attracting new customers.
What?
Especially problematic as there are many people who get turned away from games with long-ish runtimes, such as OMORI. Ergo, the real reason the manga exists is not an alternative way of experiencing the story, but rather a cash grab riding off the popularity of the source material. I am entirely confident in my argument here. This is not some long-winded rant about the OMORI manga, or in my opinion. No, that's not how we do things around here. I care not about convincing you. Everyone's free to have their own likes and dislikes. Rather, I'm here to prove a point.
Hi, Ivory.
As you can tell by the sheer length of this video, I am going to meticulously, thoroughly, and concretely prove that the OMORI manga cannot work. Play the game instead. And
Even though I don't hate the manga as much as this guy, I think anyone would say play the game first, or if you could only do one of them, you would play the game, definitely.
I do mean play it. If you've watched the playthrough, you realize that doesn't work. No. I love this game as much as Zio, and I know a lot of things about it. And this video has been in the works since the manga was announced, let alone released.
Oh, wow.
And indeed, there is much to talk about here.
Why did you make me do this?
Now, I understand that nobody cares about this sort of stuff as much as I do. So for your viewing pleasure, I've partitioned this video into a table of contents. I do, however, encourage you to watch the whole thing. Oh, and spoilers for OMORI, obviously. There's really no way I can avoid talking about it. Please.
Well, of course.
And without further ado, let's get down to business. Before I begin my argument proper, I would like to talk a little bit about what this manga is and my disdain for it. The astute among you may recognize this isn't the first time we've had an OMORI comic. Indeed, when OMORI was first conceived in 2011, it was originally a webcomic. As OMORI's popularity grew, it transitioned into a graphic novel. Unfortunately, very little of this project is publicly available, as it was abandoned in 2015.
I think one of the Kickstarter rewards was I think when OMOCAT released the art book, she said that she would release those unreleased pages or those blog pages that were lost to time. And then when I got the art book and I looked through it and I posted them online, people were like, yeah, no, none of them are there. So unfulfilled Kickstarter promise, unfortunate.
From then on, OMORI would be told through a game, with the story being overhauled through OMORI's long and messy development history. And as a disclaimer, I would like to point out that not all of OMORI was intentionally designed. OMOCAT did not work alone. OMORI is the collective work of many individuals with different ideas. And considering the sum of developers, I'd say some things just turned out to be happy accidents.
That's fucking crazy.
Ideas. And considering the same developers, I'd say some things turn out to be happy accidents. But I'm still going to be analyzing it as if everything was planned out because it's the final product. And for what it's worth, OMOCAT seems to be proud of said final product. Which brings me to the manga. Whose idea was this? Third time's the charm, I guess, because on the 22nd of November, OMOCAT officially announced that an OMORI manga adaptation was in the works, published by Kodansha and serialized under Simon monthly afternoon, with the mangaka going by the alias of we'll get to them later. Contrary to popular belief, OMOCAT is closely involved with production.
Such a cute drawing. I don't think I've seen OMOCAT drawn in Nui's art style before. I like that.
Alongside the mangaka, the commentary on the physical release of Chapter 1 confirms this, as well as supporting tweets.
Wait, he edited some of the text there.
The mangaka, the commentary on the physical release
Wait, that's only, I'm stupid. That's only because it's a translation. Yeah.
confirms this, as well as supporting tweets. If you know anything about how OMOCAT works, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise.
I am their mom.
The first promotional material shown also displayed a different art style than what's seen in-game. Anyways, 3 months later, a small semi-animated teaser was revealed during the OMORI 3rd anniversary concert.
We should make that NGC.
4 was promised as the
Hi, Kenway.
Towards the end of May, the date was confirmed to be June 25th, which, interestingly, is not in spring. Yeah, nice try. And also some birthday drawings too, who cares really. Unfortunately, physical...
Why are the feet so detailed?
...exclusive as of now. But fear not, because the official English digital manga releases a date earlier on the 24th, and right. Well, I'm no stranger to this. By the way, Manga, the platform the English digital manga is hosted on, not only is it a US exclusive, but uses a point-based system to read manga. For themselves. Anyways, the 24th comes around and the manga is released. And let the clickbait begin.
The manga and game series that has saved many people's lives. I have personally never played myself. I do not own this game. I don't own it. I've never played it. The only
What the hell's...
Now it's worth your hype the manga is.
I'm trying really hard not to take this personally, but I don't like that he called people out for clickbait, and then I wasn't shown as an example.
See, normally when an adaptation of this magnitude is announced, there is some degree of backlash, but this never manifested. I was able to find some like-minded individuals at the time, but nobody ever listened to us.
Thank you.
It's comical to see the amount of blind faith people had, and to an extent, still do. Let them cook. At worst, people were cautiously worried, yet still excited.
So will there be anything new, or will it just be a remake? What do you think?
I think it stinks.
Make no mistake though, I'm certain some people will retroactively claim that the manga wasn't needed, but it was unfathomably popular when it was announced. Look, if you were, or still are, excited, that's great. As for me though...
Oh no. This can't be.
Now, there's no choice in YouTube videos which pretend to be objective when they're really not, so I want to make myself as transparent as possible. I am biased. I am a hater.
That is what I am.
And I am a gatekeeper.
Being a guardian of the gate doesn't mean you're supposed to open the gate.
Hateful.
Fair.
But I even begin to describe how it felt over the past year.
Ooh,
Every community
I have no mouth and I must scream.
either pretends to like the game or only likes a certain aspect of it. We are not the same. My frustration stems from the fact that I love this game unconditionally and will defend it at every angle because it is just that good. Which is why the manga is so perplexing to me. I do not unconditionally and will defend it at every angle.
Wanted to read that.
Because it is.
OMORI is perfect. This game has a lot of flaws if you think about it. The pacing is awful. I mean, like, the truth sequence is unrealistic. How did they hide it from the police? That is the natural life cycle of an OMORI fan. I feel like there's an OMORI discussion bingo sheet that everyone always has to cross some spaces off of, and they always bring up the police or OMOCAT's old tweets or something, and every conversation starts to feel the same.
Just that good. Which is why the manga is so perplexing to me. I do not wish to antagonize anyone with this video, but I do strongly believe that people have their priorities in the wrong order. People should not be grateful for new content. If you've paid for OMORI, then you don't owe OMOCAT anything.
I agree with that. I agree that like there's a lot of people who are just like, I'm just thankful we got anything new, and I'm like, I could understand hating on people who are just being like really spiteful or whatever, but there's nothing wrong with like having standards. You can read the manga and not like it, and I don't think people should fault you for that.
I am of the opinion that unnecessary content is almost always bad content, and you should be as well. Nobody is infallible, and even franchise creators make mistakes and should be held accountable. Don't deify OMOCAT, this is all just business.
Too late.
As of the time of writing, the manga, rather predictably so, has received a mixed response.
It's the biggest piece of dog.
Quote-unquote major problem with the manga isn't necessarily any one big thing. Things that shake up the foundation of the story and make fans ask if it's gonna be able to deliver a good story.
The most evident difference when comparing OMORI as a game and its manga adaptation as of now is the reordering of events.
Oh boy, do I have a lot to tell you. People have been on some quality copium, and while this has been really funny to watch, I am not here to hate on the official manga per se. Right now, people are critiquing superficial things, such as the art and story. These can change on the fly. Consequently, people still believe in the lie that an OMORI manga can work. I'm here to tell you the truth. Let's imagine a hypothetical OMORI manga adaptation. We can call it OManga. OManga is a perfect manga adaptation for OMORI. Its art, paneling, characterization, action, and story are all exceptional, all the while being a faithful adaptation. So, would OManga be good? No. To prove that, I'm going to be focusing on this hypothetical manga from here on. I'll address my thoughts on the actual manga later. Okay, one last thing before we begin. I would like to take a moment to discuss the mangaka of the
Oh no.
Who is that?
This is off topic, so if you don't care, skip here.
I hope this doesn't just turn into like a complaining about pro shipping for an hour.
Let's just call him Bob. Now, a lot of people don't like Bob, but like, what took you guys so long? You people had almost 7 months to investigate them, and you're angry? Now? But let's back up a bit. When the OMORI manga was first announced, Bob was likewise revealed as its corresponding illustrator. Strangely though, Bob's Twitter account was seemingly created just for the manga, and OMORI never once elaborated on who Bob was, or their background, so many people assumed them to be an anonymous.
I just like the loading screen OMOCAT.
Just for the manga, and OMOCAT never once elaborated on who Bob was, or their background. So many people assumed them to be an anonymous artist. Now, for whatever reason, the OMORI community at large struggled to find information about Bob.
I did a bit of research, but I couldn't find anything about him.
I, however, have a working internet connection. I did research on Bob all
He's just roasting everyone in the OMORI community.
April, and it's a good thing I did because a lot of the stuff I found has since been deleted. And believe me, I went pretty far. I'm now in a position.
Oh damn, is that her voice? Damn. She sounds cute.
Where I know more about this person than anyone else, so allow me to tell you exactly who they are.
Alright.
Purely of credentials here, Bob does have the necessary qualifications for a project of this caliber. This is not their first work, and they have participated in professional collaborations, such as music videos, which I will deny go kinda hard. They had 2 additional Twitter accounts, defunct, as well as a presence on other social media sites, thanks to the Wayback Machine, reposts, and other such archives, a lot to be unveiled about their work before it was deleted. Now I have to be careful of what I say, as Big Brother is always watching. So instead, I'll just put it on the screen for you to read.
They are a yaoi artist, that's it?
Brother is always watching. So instead, I'll just put it on the screen for you to read.
I think he meant to say Shota instead there, because yaoi, to my knowledge, just means two guys going at it, which people don't really mind. I think he probably just meant to put Shota there. Apart from that, they've been exceedingly polite. That's cool.
That's it?
This is all really funny to uncover. I cannot escape the allegations no matter how hard she tries. They were...
What the hell was that?
So I have no idea what...
Wait, hold on. Ah, shit, I had it.
I cannot escape the allegations no matter how hard she...
Buy any Omori shaped pizza and get one free Shota shake this weekend.
He tries. They were already in hot water for this kind of stuff, so I have no idea what they were thinking. Considering much of Bob's profile was deleted in the months leading up to release of the manga, it's safe to assume this was a
Hi, Sonny.
phase. I predicted that once knowledge of Bob's past reached critical mass, people would boycott the manga. And I was right. In particular, this rage bait tweet bed did the job. Now, if your first response to all of this drama was to drop the manga, well...
I'm sorry to hear that. I was hoping you'd stay.
There seems to be a lot of misplaced anger. So I'll enlighten you by saying that this is a nothing burger of a controversy. A Tuesday for the fans. Kota Hirano, the author of Hellsing, my beloved, originally drew inappropriate manga. Hajime Isayama, of Attack on Titan fame, has been criticized for a certain character being based on a certain person.
Oh.
Boichi, fan service to Oblivion. This guy's an actual criminal. Go Naga. The jokes write themselves. Do I even need to mention early Dragon Ball?
Nope.
Even if you think these examples are cherry-picked, this speaks nothing of the sheer volume of manga and webcomics released in Japan on the
Yeah.
Twitter really is an amazing site. It's outstanding how many people in the bubble will publicly humiliate themselves. I mean, the fact that the tweet that revealed all this drama had content warnings is proof enough of that fact.
Cancel.
Go ahead. Who cares?
Omocat doesn't care. Bob doesn't care. I don't even think they speak a word of English. Japan certainly doesn't care either. Manga is big business, people. They're not going to cancel it just because some people in the West got upset.
True. Overwhelming, like, you know, that's just a lot of Omori's fan base doesn't really care about her past controversial works, so no matter how mad a lot of Twitter gets, it's not going to matter. Someone in chat said that it was a bit quiet. Let me go ahead and turn up the volume a tiny bit. There we go.
Don't twist my words here. In no way am I condoning Bob or their works, but they drew commissions for a market that wants it. That is nothing out of the ordinary for digital artists. It's all kind of...
Also, lots of you in chat were retweeting Brazilian Miku, who's 16, so I'm very disappointed.
sad, really. Because apart from the people who are desperate for attention, you also have people who seem to be genuinely upset about this.
I like how this guy's just roasting everyone who's complaining about the mangaka.
Figured it out too late.
Of course people are upset, because the Omori manga will always be disappointing. It's not meant to be. So, don't misunderstand. My disdain for the Omori manga is not so shallow as to be described by petty drama. I couldn't care less about it.
Oh, there I am, Gary. There I am. Hey, so boss, real quick, we can hear the sound of your PC over the sound of the audio. That shouldn't be we need to put over the sound of the video. That shouldn't be happening because I'm using headphones. Do you mean like the fan from my PC right over here? Just let me know what you mean by that. Also, really like how that thumbnail turned out, but yeah, no, to his credit, the thumbnail does paint the picture that I hate the mangaka, which I don't. I just know that it was probably an issue some people wanted to hear about.
Could be you, could be me. I will hate the manga regardless, because the truth is, the manga was rigged from the start.
Think it's the fan? Hold on.
Allow me to begin with my strongest argument. This, after all, was the same reason Omocat had when designing this game. Omori's main protagonist, Sunny, is a silent protagonist. His character, as well as the story as a whole, only works in combination with this fact. In general, immersion is a critical component when discussing protagonists for story-based games. You want to feel as if you are the character that you're playing.
Arkham Asylum makes you feel like you're Batman.
Oh god.
Protagonists, for all their flaws, act as great conduits for the player, precisely because they don't talk. That is why they tend to fill the role of self-insert characters. Hence, Omori's story is fixated around Sunny, his journey, his relationship with his friends, his fears, and his choices. Ergo, it's the player's journey, the player's relationship with her friends, the player's fears, and the player's choices. With that in mind, Sunny is not a self-insert. To explain away the necessary player-character interaction vital for OMORI storytelling to function, being silent is part of Sunny's personality. RPG conversation, be it talking to an...
Yeah, Sunny strikes a good middle ground because he's silent enough that he's silent enough that you can kind of headcanon a lot of what's going on, but he also does obviously have some weight to him. There's definitely a preconceived character still there. It's a good middle ground.
An NPC or what have you is inherently one-sided. This means that instead of a conversation between two ordinary characters, it's a conversation between one character and the player, helping us with immersion. This is particularly useful as OMORI sets up mysteries for the player to unravel. Early on, we learn about his friends, as well as something more sinister that seems to be haunting him. Sunny discovers said mysteries alongside the player, and they are tied to his past. To name but one example would be the reveal that Sunny's sister, Mari, is dead. The player is first introduced to Mari when playing as OMORI in Sunny's dreams, but when exploring the real world, Mari is curiously absent. The player naturally tends to ponder about where Mari is. The game toys with this idea, only later explicitly revealing that she is in fact dead. This furthermore adds additional context to the weird horrific monsters we've been seeing, and the story snowballs from there. Immersion also assists with attachment.
I actually like the church scene more in the manga, which I know is not a popular opinion, but I personally really liked it in the manga.
That is to say, the player growing fond of their controlled character. Sunny is a character who has done unspeakable things in the past, and the narrative of the game emphasizes the importance of forgiveness. Ergo, the player needs to forgive Sunny as well. Think about why you can name Sunny in the first place. People often put in their own names here. Then we approach the intersection of Sunny's character and the RPG mechanics of the game. For starters, OMORI, from its inception, has featured a colorful world ripe for exploration. When exploring or fighting, it's about where you want to go and what you want to do. This once again contributes to immersion. But it runs deeper. OMORI knows it's an RPG and cleverly exploits that fact. Early into the game you can explore Sunny's house, only for him to tell you, no. Interesting. I wonder what this has to say about his fears. Before you can wake up for the first time, you're stranded in the game's first...
Humaniki is such a mysterious game. I think that's why... I think even this guy would admit that the manga for Humaniki is like even worse than the OMORI manga, because Humaniki is such a mysterious game that any attempt to build on how abstract it is or add more concrete lore just makes it fall flat on its face.
Area, white space, with no clue as to how to exit, only for you to spot the stab option in the menu. The game forces you to do something you might find uncomfortable, as well as adding additional intrigue to Sunny's mental state. On the first night, you're prompted to open a door for Mari. If you do, you'll be greeted with a scare. This plays into a similar such scene later in the game, where you're prompted to open the same door for your friend, Kel. Much like last time, you don't know whether he's actually there or not. If you do open it, not only is the player experiencing the outside world for the first time, it's also Sunny's first time in 4 years. The game betrays its RPG formula, as if the player walks into the road or daydreams, the game won't behave.
The cool thing about when you make a game where you can go anywhere, you have to be really clever with the story. So some of the stuff he's talking about reminds me of how in God of War, like after you complete a main quest, you and Atreus can go anywhere, and Atreus explicitly says, he's like, we could go back to the forest to do main story stuff, or we could just show me where you want to go. And then Kratos goes, okay. And it's like, that's cool. Like, the problem with that storytelling format is if something urgent is going on, it starts to feel weird that you're not immediately going there. Like, how many people in chat played a game where the main quest was like, oh, you have to save this person now, and if you don't go there, they're going to die, and then you just do a million side quests first, and it's like, that person's going to be like, where the hell were you, kind of thing.
As expected, RPG battle mechanics such as fighting and defeating enemies now suddenly don't work as well, tricking the player into hurting their friend, Aubrey.
Whoa.
Sonny will even hallucinate and can fool the player into believing his imaginary characters are real, again revealing Sonny's deteriorating mental state. And lest we forget, the player is in full control of the story. Whether Sonny confronts his fears or not, or lets certain characters die, is up to the player, acting on behalf of Sonny. Player choice was an intentional decision by Omocat, and that prospect of choice is leagues more important to his character than simply being an observer, like in the manga.
So what he's saying is the Omori manga should have been a choose-your-own-adventure book like those Goosebumps books.
In truth, this topic deserves its own video, and I've only talked about Sonny, never mind Omori. But what I am trying to say is that the story of Omori, which is fixated around its main character, was designed to be linked with us, the player. This character, which works so effortlessly in a video game, is nowhere near as elegant in all manga. With the audience now being an observer instead of in control of Sonny's actions, the elements of his character developed through RPG mechanics are lost completely. And though body language and facial expression does help, which is something RPG Maker was limited in its ability to convey, it's not a replacement for immersion.
It just feels more immersive to be able to see the reactions of our protagonist to the crazy things happening.
Oh god, is he gonna quote me at some point? Don't spoil that.
Around him.
Interesting, yes. Immersive, not at all. His one-sided character interactions, which were previously not a problem, now present a serious issue. When your main character can barely interact with its supporting cast, it's not a good sign.
So a lot of people hate how expressive Sonny is in the manga. I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool to see like a new wrinkle to him, but yeah, no, a character that's originally designed for a game is going to be, it's like, at the end of the day, the manga is going to be it's going to be like trying to fit a square-shaped peg into a circle-shaped hole. You could make the peg look really nice, you can ornament it, you can draw it really well, you can do all sorts of amazing things, but at the end of the day, it's not going to fit perfectly into the circle peg, so no matter how good the manga is, he's right about it being inherently flawed.
While manga Sonny is inherently boring to watch because his actions lack any sort of context. No longer does the player decide Sonny's actions, now he is simply a zombie to the plot, all the while saying nothing. This is not the fault of the mangaka. Sonny's character is simply incompatible with any kind of manga adaptation. There are only two paths for his character. A. Stay true to his personality and have him not speak, or only in minute amounts. This seems to be the route the actual manga is taking, but as already discussed, Sonny becomes a shadow of what he is in the source material. B. Have him speak. This would once more recontextualize his actions, but it would also destroy his character in the process. For a traumatized shut-in, his character needs to reflect that, and him talking profusely doesn't bode well. Worse still, having Sonny speak just sort of breaks much of the dialogue of the story, as it was meant to tell the player.
Almost every NPC in-game warrants no response from the player. Sonny talking would dramatically shake up the dialogue of the entire story. I mean, it's definitely jarring to have him, because like, you know, when you know, like he said, Sonny is like a vehicle for the player in the game. So in the manga, it's like, okay, what is he doing here now? So I guess he does kind of struggle to justify his own existence. I mean, there's the flat character arcs, like, you know, Goku doesn't change much throughout Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z besides from becoming more powerful, but he's like a cool vessel for experiencing the story. So maybe you could argue the same thing about Sonny.
Their information, not the other way around. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation. There probably is a middle ground here, and Sonny should speak in some capacity to give the manga a fighting chance. But regardless of how you write this character, it will always come short to how he's portrayed in the source material. He is a beautiful character.
I agree with that. No matter how good you make the manga, it's not going to be better than the game. Unless you did like a spin-off with completely different characters in the same world somehow.
But keep him where he belongs. It's hilariously ironic that the OMORI manga, a story told through a medium devoid of sound, was advertised in the OMORI 3rd anniversary concert. Unlike an album, which is a standalone piece of music from an artist, video game soundtracks, as the name suggests, are meant to accompany a video game. Music is a
I prefer the soundtrack in the manga, personally.
useful tool in storytelling for a variety of reasons, and OMORI takes advantage of this. The soundtrack of OMORI breathes plenty of life into the game and contributes greatly to the game's many emotional heights. Need I remind anyone that the climax of the game revolves around a duet? Yeah, just remove the music from that. I'm sure it'll hit the same. Even if you are willing to make the far-fetched excuse that you can simply listen to the game's soundtrack while reading, I mean that's just some serious cope. Oh, and last I checked, physical copies don't come attached with MP3 players. OMORI is not the same without its soundtrack. This is not a far-fetched argument. I'm sure anyone can understand that losing access to the soundtrack will dampen the story a bit. And people did voice concern about it, but I mean, it can't be that bad, right? Give the soundtrack some credit. So then, I would like to demonstrate just how vital OMORI's soundtrack is for orchestrating its story. When thinking of OMORI's soundtrack, it's easy to think of the most memorable songs among them. You were wrong, go back.
No, the manga doesn't have a soundtrack, I was joking.
Ready, steady, go. Jawbreaker. It means everything. My Time, World's End Valentine. These are all amazing songs, but they're all largely boss themes, ergo they can be excused from the story. But OMORI's soundtrack is comprised of 179 songs in total, and there's a lot more going underneath the hood than just energetic boss themes.
It shows a great frame to pause on. You know an underrated song in OMORI? Puddles. Just a very nice, relaxing, ambient story. If you ever play the Auth and Break mod, you'll realize how good and calming that song is.
So instead, let's talk about association. I'm going to play a few tracks from OMORI, and I want you to guess what area in the game they're played in.
Okay. Crap. I'm gonna say Sweetheart's Castle, maybe? I'm gonna deliberately not look at chat during this section. That's in the, on Otherworld, the place with the purple sky and the cornfield or whatever. I think this one is underwater, maybe when they're outside Last Resort. I haven't played normal OMORI in years, I've only played mods. When they're inside the house at Faraway.
Here are the answers. If you got
Okay. I got 2 of them right. Underwater Highway, no clue on this one. Underwater, a banger. Oh, I'm a fool.
them all right, if that's association at work. You associate the song you're listening to with a given moment from the game. Considering that OMORI is a game with a vibrant world, this does wonders in making each area stand out. Association is also a particularly useful narrative device when discussing leitmotifs. Leitmotifs are recurring musical compositions, and in lieu of their recurring nature, they lend themselves.
I like reoccurring compositions sometimes, but Super Smash Bros. Ultimate goes like way too hard with that. There's like, I think over like 35 different remixes of the main theme in Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's crazy.
Well to stories such as OMORI. For example, take this song.
I love By Your Side so much. Oh my god, it always takes me back to when I first discovered the game.
If you've played the game, I'm sure you recognize it. This is Mari's theme, ergo the player associates this song with the character. Now, turn your attention to this song. This is an entirely different track from the OST, but it's still Mari's theme. By this point in the story, the player knows that Mari has passed away, so hearing a somber rendition of her theme places greater weight onto the tragedy of her death.
Really good point. I never even thought about all this music stuff before he brought it up, but yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Let's listen to another example. This is Basil's theme. In the OST, there are 4, technically 5, different renditions of the same theme. This song is also strongly associated with Basil's photo album. It plays when you first reorganize the photo album. It plays again when you first discover the real photo album and understand that the friend group split apart. It will still play again, and pretty creepily so, when the player discovers the not-so-happy photos, and once more it will play when reminiscing over childhood memories for one last time. Consistently, the song plays during the game's heaviest moments, and it carries weight because of it. Oh, and let's not forget the main theme of the game. This is the first thing you hear when you boot up the game.
Don't play the final boss theme, please. I really don't want to cry on stream.
It is also associated with Mari, and, well, I don't think I need to explain this one. Which brings me to my next point. Tone.
Final Duet is a beautiful song, but I'm kind of immune to it now because I've had to use it for footage so many times. I've just heard the song so much. But yeah, no, just the song that's the titular Omori song when Sunny fights Omori. Yeah, that one still kind of breaks me down.
OMORI is a story of many happy moments and many sad moments, and the music reflects this. Stardust Diving is a cheerful song. It plays when you're on an adventure with your friends. Lost Library is a somber song played when discovering forgotten childhood memories with your friends. And never mind the horror songs. I, of course, could go on, but the tone behind parts of OMORI is greatly influenced by the game's soundtrack. Now, did you understand all of that? Great. That's the part most people already know. Because
Oh god, he said the words media literacy. Well, this video so far has demonstrated that this guy is very competent in articulating his points, but whenever someone says media literacy, I just immediately assume they're just trying to hate, or they're like, oh, why did you find that villain cool? You're not supposed to find that villain cool. I'm like, I don't care.
Basically, OMORI's soundtrack is at its best when it's at its simplest, or when it isn't used at all. If you've played Yumi Nikki, you'll be familiar with the idea of music contributing to atmosphere. Atmosphere is a term discussing the general feel
Food, water, atmosphere.
The game, and while it can be constructed without music, music certainly plays a pivotal role. Black Space in OMORI pays homage to Yumi Nikki, and, like its predecessor, makes use of short looping tracks to create a general feel. Uniquely, an important part of the game's soundtrack, those played in Black Space, was created before the level design, and consequently, the levels are meant to reflect the music, not the other way around. Generally speaking, these tracks are meant to be creepy, but it's not totally meaningless. Black Space is an area which explores the trauma and guilt of the main protagonist, and the music plays into this. Hearing something tell the player, I love you, with a somber piano playing. Seeing Mari's corpse hanging with melancholic background music.
Another person in chat says please turn up the volume of the video. Seems like it's been good for many people so far, but I'll turn it up a tiny bit. Okay. Later, Gary.
Incredibly depressing guitar track in the Black Forest, Black Space is one of the saddest portions of the game, thanks in no small part to music. It's also worth addressing sound design. The truth sequence, you know, the most important part of the game, takes enormous advantage of sound. The suspense is carried out by sudden loud noises, parts which are quiet, parts which are loud, parts which are uneasy, and best of all, when there's no sound at all. OMORI also uses ambience.
I'm so grateful that the truth sequence wasn't spoiled for me. That was not sure how I got through that one.
The most notable comfortable when the player explores their own house. As opposed to the happy tunes in Headspace, the game's dream world, Sunny's house is eerily quiet with a soft ambiance. It's meant to feel unwelcoming, perfectly encapsulating Sunny's desire to spend her time dreaming instead. Another example would be when the player first goes outside, but joyful music only plays when the player has been briefed about major plot revelations. Up until then, it's quiet.
Later, Doctor.
Again, creating suspense and contrasting Headspace greatly. Now, was that a lot? I hope so, because music and sound moreover are important. Very important. And this importance is lost of any manga adaptation, and by consequence, manga will be inherently more limited in its approach to tell its story. Did people really expect that nothing would change? That you can simply remove sound from a story, one which was clearly designed to take advantage of sound, and everything would just work?
Stop it!
Go ahead, play the game muted. I promise you it'll be a lackluster experience. This is a weakness, full stop. Make no mistake.
Sorry to any deaf people who play Omori.
Manga have done exceptionally well without needing to rely on sound. But again, we're adapting OMORI here. To suggest that all manga can magically adapt and replace all the nuances that sound offers is utterly ridiculous. Manga is famous for its black and white illustrations. There is no rule stipulating that manga need not be in color. Many manga are, or at least partially in color, but in addition to being a stylistic choice, black and white is faster to produce and cheaper to print. It goes without saying that all manga isn't necessarily condemned to be.
The thing is, manga, someone in chat says, the thing is, manga is made with the intent of having no soundtrack, but Omori was made with it in mind. That's true, but the manga is an adaptation of the game, so the story beats that are mimicked through both of them might not hit as hard in the manga unless they made some drastic changes to accommodate only visual medium. This is, I think, what his point is.
Be colorless. Even the first chapter of the digital manga had color on 2 pages, but again, manga are typically black and white. Digital colorings, of course, will be made.
Oh, yo, I think is this the person I shouted out on Twitter that one time? No, I think this username is different. Yeah, no, some people do really good fan colors or whatever.
But it's worth pointing out that manga first and foremost are meant to be viewed on a page, not on a screen. It's a little naive to think that color can simply be stripped from a story and expect nothing to change. Including color in a visual story, such as OMORI, is not a trivial decision. Of course, manga as a medium has excelled without using color, so why is it such a problem for all manga? OMORI was not made to be black and white. Remember, this is an adaptation of an already colored story. Manga, real manga, are made colorless from the ground up. Before we address why OMORI can't be colorless, let's first understand why colorless manga even work to begin with. And I can name no better example than a series named after the color white.
I heard that people really didn't like how this manga ended, because I could be wrong, but I heard that the mangaka for this was just really tired of it, so he just gave it a really lackluster ending or whatever.
Bleach features a wide range of characters, worlds, and dramatic fight scenes, and the way it conveys these elements is through the strong contrast provided by the colors black and white. The characters, which are the focus of the reader's attention, always have strong silhouettes, making them easily recognizable. All major characters have unique body sizes, hair.
It wouldn't be a video essay if you didn't bring up unique silhouettes.
And facial features to make them stand out even when wearing the same uniform. The good guys wear black, the bad guys wear white. It's very easy to tell them apart. More nuanced designs cleverly use black and white as part of their color scheme, as to direct the reader's attention to certain parts of the body. Character transformations sometimes invert the color palette, rendering them even more striking. Backgrounds are usually kept to a minimum as to not distract the reader from the characters, but they're still detailed when they need to be. Certain areas within the story, such as Hueco Mundo, use black and white as a stylistic element, with the ground being a bright white and the sky being a solid black. Now contrast this with OMORI. Even in the original style, body proportions are incredibly similar. Everybody has same face syndrome with ordinary character design.
That's true.
Because of RPG Maker, expression is relegated to portrait boxes. Even the sprites are all very samey. Omocat's style is so generic, as a matter of fact, that people have made clickbait videos and pick crew generators, and it fits the bill pretty well.
Damn, he's really ripping on the queen, ain't he?
But OMORI circumvents these shortcomings due to a couple of reasons. Firstly, the number of main characters are small, only the important ones have portrait boxes anyway. In manga, where even the side characters must be drawn, well, you can see the problem. Secondly, and what I mainly wish to focus on, is color. Take the difference between Headspace characters and their faraway counterparts. Their designs are extremely similar, intentionally so that the player recognizes them. Color, then, is the differentiating factor. In Headspace, your friends are white and purple. In the real world, Faraway Town, they have realistic color palettes.
Kel is so goofy.
For certain characters, color is a defining aspect of their design. Aubrey, for instance, has pink hair, a symbol of her delinquency. It stands out, and it's even tied later in the game when a younger Aubrey says that she wants to dye her hair with Mari. This design element is entirely lost in manga because her hair will always be white, black, or gray. Worst of all are Sunny and OMORI, the game's main protagonists. OMORI is strictly black and white, whereas Sunny isn't. And oh my god, I cannot tell them apart. How did people think this was a good idea? So why not just redesign the characters to better fit a manga format? The fact that this can be contemplated at all is indicative that a manga should not be attempted. But okay, sure. Characters aside, you must then address how color is used in the rest of the game. Instead of listening to me, why don't you listen to Omacat herself? She gives plenty of examples, so I'll speed it up a bit. In order to develop identities for all of OMORI's worlds, I used very different colors for each world. A dreamy palette for Headspace, a more realistic color scheme for Faraway Town, and dark intense colors for Black Space in the fear sequences. To further give each subworld their own unique identity, the areas in Headspace were all tied to different main color schemes. Green for Vast Forest, purple for Otherworld, pink for Sweetheart's Castle, and so on. Color is not just a way to develop direction, but also can be used as an effective way to guide a player or convey emotions to them. For example, you may have heard that most fast food chains use the color red in their logo because it makes you hungry, or that the reason traffic cones are bright orange is because your eyes naturally take note of it. In the same way, light and pastel colors are typically soft and soothing, so adding contrasting bits of scary events across a dreamlike headspace makes the place feel more uneasy. Part of your brain is thinking, this should be peaceful, but it's not. On the other hand, saturated and dark colors can produce more intensity. In Deeper Well, the area before Humphrey, the colors suddenly become dark.
Deeper Well is creepy as hell.
Neon and alien-like. This was done because the NPC dialogues in the area become much more introspective, so the player needs a cue to sense that the mood of the game is shifting to become more.
I remember reading this for the first time and thinking it was just really the friend you have lost is not in this world. The day he was removed, he was reborn elsewhere. Like, that was definitely like the main driving thing for me. I was just like, what the hell happened to this guy? What's going on? So anytime like Headspace was willing to give you some answers, I was like eating it up real good. I was just really curious to know what happened. But also the moment where they all forget Basil exists in the first place is really depressing.
More serious. Of course, the music helps with this too. As another example, the combination of red and black is the most intense and usually used to convey something evil or sinister. Because of this, scenarios with the fears along the staircase were originally going to be red and black. However, I wanted to use the color palette sparingly and save it for scenes where the game would be the most intense, like OMORI's red hand sequence and the final battle. Now, she talks a bit more, and I can name more examples as well, but you get the picture. When you only have black, white, and gray to work with, OMORI's story becomes quite literally dull. Most important of all, the ability to convey tone is hampered. Instead of explaining how, I think it's better to just show you.
You used the SpongeBob movie as an example. That's awesome.
Yeah, the most obvious example of how the game does this would be how the game quite literally gets darker during serious moments. Another example will be that towards the end of the game, warmer colors are used to relax the player as they explore the last of Sunny's memories. Coupled with the music, it's a heartwarming moment that prepares the player for the final boss.
The piano stops and the hue shifts to dark blue.
Lastly, color can be used as a focal point. Look no further than manga music videos. A bit of color pairs well to black and white. In the game, this principle is used best during the truth sequence. The color red in particular is used carefully. bloody footprints on a dark background, the red sky, the red background of the photo album, the glowing red windows, the player character becoming colored in blood, it all contributes to the uneasiness of the scene. Now, I oversimplified a lot, and in truth, an entire video can be made on this topic. I haven't even touched on how color can be used stylistically. You may think this is just overanalysis, but you have to expand your horizons.
Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad use color very effectively. I know in Better Call Saul they started doing this thing where red people who were more associated with the criminal underworlds would wear red clothing. So like the girl that worked at the old folks home that was extorting money or whatever, she had like a giant red stripe on her shirt.
Color is important and it should not be underestimated. OMORI was made with this fact in mind, even when it was a webcomic. To remove it is by extension remove a portion of OMORI storytelling. So, since you're already playing the game muted, while you're at it, apply a monochrome filter too. OMORI needs color.
That's true. Again, the video game medium applies, like Erwin said earlier, it's like just because it's a mixed medium, you can put a lot more small touches into the story. I'd never thought about the absence of color in audio, whatever, that's true.
Let's talk about the actual game part of OMORI now. There's a lot to cover, so let's first discuss interactivity. Interactivity is what makes video games unique as a storytelling medium. The action the player takes will impact how they perceive the game and its story. I feel as if many fans have a sort of amnesia where they only remember the important story moments of the game, not everything leading up to it. What I want you to do is go to the OMORI wiki and just read. Just read through it, and look how detailed each area of the game is and how much the player is allowed to do.
Wait, did he just say use the fandom wiki instead of the normal wiki? Doesn't everyone say to do the exact opposite of that?
In an RPG, you'll almost always be doing one of three things: exploration, reading dialogue, or engaging in combat. In OMORI's case, none of these translate well into a manga. But let's first focus on exploration. Exploration is inherently interactive within a video game, and since OMORI is rather big for an RPG Maker game, exploration does take up a significant portion of the game's runtime. Recall that being able to explore OMORI's world was an explicit design choice Omocat had when creating this game. Notice how the player only takes up a small portion of the screen, the rest is dedicated to the environment at hand. Both Headspace and Faraway Town are large and offer plenty for the player to do. In a manga, all environments must be drawn, but there's only so much information that can be conveyed this way. A book may be more descriptive and give more information to the reader that they otherwise would not have known, but it won't be as visually impressive. A video game, on the other hand, makes the best of both worlds. In OMORI, you walk up to something, you read about it, and repeat. This is done hundreds of times throughout the game. It's so natural, but I haven't seen anyone else bring this up. But a lot of information is conveyed this way. Something important to note is that the narration throughout the game always uses second-person pronouns such as you and your. In Sunny's house, towards the end of the game, it will switch to first-person pronouns I and me. It's a sweet moment and adds context to his character, almost as if the relationship between him and the player is important. There are also moments where interactivity and player choice are necessary for the story to present itself effectively. I've already discussed this when going over OMORI's silence protagonist, so I won't bear repeating them here. But one example I'd like to shine light on is when the player reaches Mari's grave. As Omocat herself explains, quote, I wanted the moment to be something the player chose to do themselves. Ultimately, I decided that leaving the cemetery scenarios to be discovered instead of required would make those moments feel more special to the players who found them.
Yeah, that's the thing I hear lots of game developers talk about is like, that must suck if you put so much effort into this cool area and then just a player goes through it and completely misses it. But yeah, no. That's pretty bold to put the Mari's grave as an optional place.
OMORI is so much more than just its main plot. Every good story is. Which brings me to the elephant in the room, Headspace. I love Headspace, and when adapting OMORI, Headspace comes up as a problem as it is gameplay centric, with the main plot moving along when the player wakes up.
OMORI is also not a short game, so I wonder if... Oh god. Here we go, let's see what he has to say. I don't know what channel this is, I like this guy's voice though.
Centric, with the main plot moving along when the player wakes up.
OMORI is also not a short game, so I wonder if it's going to be multiple volumes or just one big graphic novel. To be fair, there is a lot of filler from the game that can be cut from...
You make my blood boil.
There's been a
All right, let's see the rebuttal to that.
There's this narrative going around, and not just with OMORI, that if something doesn't immediately move the plot forward, it doesn't matter. Filler is one of those words that have lost their meaning as it's unbelievably overused. Look, like it or not, Headspace is not filler, although some parts certainly are weaker than others. From the beginning, OMORI's mission statement has been about exploring a world of imagination. Despite the game's many revisions over the course of its development, this much has remained consistent. Most of the player's time is spent here, and our information about the characters first and foremost comes from here. When you consider the sheer amount of content placed here, and the fact that more of it was added in the console release, the developers want you to spend time here. Once interactivity is removed from the equation though, Headspace does genuinely become filler. Portions of the story will offer little to the reader. This was fine when it was a video game and there was a world to interact with, explore, do...
Like, I get what he means, like, the Headspace is a time to settle down and get to know the characters and relax with them and make those moments that move the plot forward that much more impactful. There's nothing wrong with that. My issue is that there's such a thing as doing too much of it, and I think Headspace could have been a fair amount shorter and still had a lot of impact with, like, getting the player accustomed with the characters and settling down with them and having fun, and to have those faraway moments mean more. So, yeah, no, I don't think I completely agree with that, but I see what he's saying.
Fun stuff. Ergo, Manga is in a tough spot, where a significant portion of what makes OMORI is just not compatible with a manga adaptation. That is probably why in the manga so far, they haven't even bothered with sticking to an accurate portrayal of events. I'm not quite done talking about Headspace just yet. But suffice it to say, if you think you can invalidate most of OMORI and expect the story to be the same, if not better, then perhaps you're not using most of your brain either.
Woo, feeling good.
Content merely describes how much stuff there is to do or see within the game. Though more gameplay content is useful to the player, not everything is particularly useful for the sake of a manga adaptation. OMORI has, I'd wager, around 30 hours worth of content. That's a lowball.
You basically just said the same thing I said earlier. Hold on, I'll go back.
Content merely describes how much stuff there is to do or see within the game. Though more gameplay content is useful to the player, not everything is particularly useful for the sake of a manga adaptation.
Exactly. How is that not the exact same thing I just said earlier?
OMORI has, I'd wager, around 30 hours worth of content. That's a lowball, and your total playtime will likely be much higher if you're trying to 100% the game.
I'm sure he'll watch this and explain that in the comments or whatever.
I wish to emphasize is just how much needs to be cut or changed, lest the story be bloated. Obvious stuff like tutorials and quick time events are gone, so that's most of the prologue right off the bat. Headspace, as already mentioned, is completely wrecked, but other parts of the game share the same fate. Optional dialogue, quests, fights, areas, etc. are RPG main staples. If the player isn't interested, they don't have to engage with them. Manga, on the other hand,
oh, it's Sans Gaming's favorite GIF.
Either something is drawn, or it isn't. This is the most prevalent of an issue from the faraway town portions of the game, as this is where the earthbound influence of OMORI shines through. The stuff that can be done here is all lighthearted and wacky, but it does a good job at contextualizing the world behind OMORI. There's also plenty of character interaction and overall fun to be had. But the plot is also most important during these segments of the game, so if the player isn't interested, they can simply skip most of it. Manga cannot do this. Now, OMORI also has more than one major route the player can choose to take. There is the true route that most people are familiar with and the direction the manga seems to be taking, as well as the neutral route, also known as the Hikikomori route, or just OMORI route for short. I'm going to make a safe bet and say most of you watching have not played the OMORI route, which is a shame. Unlike the true route, this route is entirely gameplay focused, but it's still the same game and the same story. I could always see this being adapted as a completely original story, which is fine, but the fact that this needs to be considered at all is evident that a manga adaptation isn't the best idea. All the nuances OMORI provides are simply...
Yes, Baz, that's true, but he said that certain parts of Headspace wouldn't work in a manga form, and I said that about... Well, that's basically what I said. I said that there's stuff that I guess maybe my phrasing could have been different. I'm like, there's filler that can be cut from the game for the manga. Maybe a better way for me to have phrased it would have been, there are moments in the game that don't work in the manga, so those can be removed, because I guess my language in the original statement was more reductive towards the game itself. So yeah, in that regard, I can understand.
Flatlined into one linear approach of the story. The only solution I can think of are pointless spin-off novels. There's nothing inherently wrong with a manga adaptation creating new...
Oh, sorry, I was adjusting the mic. Yeah, no, I did not like the Yumaniki manga very much. In my Yumaniki video, I will touch on it a bit.
Content to replace incompatible content. But, again, most of the game is incompatible. You must consider all of this when adapting OMORI. It's not always about the main plot. The player is doing so many other things, and it's what makes OMORI, well, OMORI. It's a big world. Being an RPG is part of its character. It's something that Omacat shows over something akin to a point-and-click story. This is a big one. OMORI's turn-based combat system can be a deal-breaker for many, not to mention the general pace of the game. I mean, who even likes it anyway? Me. I like it.
King! Absolute king. I maybe this is just from being in the OMORI server and I just see people like crapping on the combat all the time. OMORI's manga is not going to win a Nobel Peace Prize or change your view on turn-based combat in video games, but I do think the emotion system is cool, and I think as far as RPG Maker games in general, it's on the higher side of good. It's funny. He's just like, yeah, no, me. I'm the one who likes it.
This is a big one. OMORI's turn-based combat system can be a deal-breaker for many, not to mention the general pace of the game. I mean, who even likes it anyway? Me. I like it. Let's face it, OMORI isn't winning any awards for its combat system, but unlike some OMORI fans, I actually enjoy the games that I play. It is true that OMORI's saving grace is its story, but I've seen a few people that overcompensate and try to argue that it's somehow detrimental to the overall experience. Listen, I'm sorry RPG Maker games aren't your forte. Some go above and beyond, but speaking from personal experience,
I still need to play Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. That guy gave me a review code for it, and I know it's inspired by Final Fantasy V's combat system, so I'm looking forward to playing that. But also, OMORI can be, especially like when you're grinding to beat an optional mini-boss in OMORI, those can be really fun moments. As long as you're not just using the Kel nuke over and over.
Most suck. Oh, I'm well aware OMORI's combat system is unbalanced and flawed, but guess what? Every RPG is unbalanced and flawed. If it's really that hard for you to complete OMORI due to its gameplay, which is adorable by most JRPG standards, refer to the Subway Surfers footage in the bottom right corner.
Taking no prisoners. You don't need the Subway Surfers footage when you have the slime girls on screen, though. They do make Humphrey worth it.
Retain your fleeting attention span. Regardless, manga is not an RPG nor turn-based, so adapting OMORI presents a unique challenge. The route many adaptations take is to simply portray RPG fights as action sequences. This is the faithful approach, but it is undeniably boring. There's a lot more to a good fight than just looking cool. The fight itself needs to be interesting and keep the audience invested. There should be context and stakes to the fight, emotional investment, plot ramifications.
I really need to read Dragon Ball again.
And sometimes a power system to make the fight more interesting. Does this all sound like OMORI? OMORI is not a f***ing shonen, people. Am I really supposed to be excited about OMORI fighting Sprout moles? All a manga does is expose how rudimentary these fights are. This doesn't matter in the game. Your investment in the fight is tailored to the game mechanics. If you lose, you get a game over. The alternative approach is to not bother with fights. But again, most of the game is just this, especially Headspace. With all these blind spots, hopefully you're starting to see just how incompatible OMORI is with a manga adaptation. But we're not done just yet.
Man, he really likes this gif of Sonny getting thrown in the trash can.
Alright, I hope you've paid attention up until now, because
Oh god, the pacing. Yep, this is where he's gonna go absolutely ham. Let me, I won't take too long, let me just read some of the chat messages. I think he means headspace might be filler in terms of... Yeah. That makes sense. That's completely true. But at the end of the day, it still helps paint the picture of Omori should have never even been a manga. Yeah, no, I could definitely understand that. Like, sometimes it works out surprisingly well, though. Like, The Last of Us TV show wasn't half bad. And also, people would say that about the One Piece live-action series, too. I really liked the One Piece live-action series. So sometimes, even though it sounds like a terrible idea, I do kind of appreciate the attempt. Maybe an Omori manga, if I had to choose, I probably would have had an Omori manga that covers different characters or whatever, so that it doesn't run into the issues of mimicking the game. Because if they did a different story with the manga, it wouldn't be compared to the game as much, and they could have been a lot different. That boss, sorry for missing the chapter 3 stream. The reason I'm kind of like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it, dude.
This is what all my gameplay talk has been leading up to. Chapter 1 of the manga was criticized for having terribly fast pacing, and although that is true, the reality is that this was always going to be a problem. The strength of a manga comes in the way it portrays its story through its art. After all, it's a comic, not a traditional novel. And part of that strength relies on how easy it is to get into. You can read manga from almost anywhere. It's why comics are placed in magazines. Video games, on the other hand, tend to demand much more of your attention, especially Omori. Don't forget that many people read manga adaptations of video games precisely because they are faster. Regardless of how you feel about the game's pacing, the reality is that Omori is not out of line with other long RPGs.
He's right about that manga bit. I have never watched all of the Dragon Ball Z anime because it's just the pacing is so slow. There's like 8 episodes where they're sweating, waiting for Namek to explode, and the manga is just so much faster, so much more, I don't know, just pure. Although I know there's extra story bits you miss out on when you don't watch the anime.
RPGs, particularly JRPGs. These games are long, their stories are nuanced and gradually built up. They have enormous areas for the player to interact with, and they're all very, very wordy. This is a serious problem for all manga. Manga is built off pictures.
Yeah, that's true, Spazza, because it's a lot more linear. In The Last of Us, it was definitely easier to adapt than Omori. That's sure. That's for true.
Even the most slice-of-life manga aren't strangers to depicting action. But when you're forced to adapt the game with an encyclopedia's worth of text, something has to make way. I'll use the first chapter of the Omori manga to illustrate my point, as it helps that some of the dialogue is ripped one-to-one from the game. Only counting speech bubbles and nothing else, I counted 1,011 total words over 54 pages for an average of 18.7 words per page. Give or take, I might have miscounted a few. Ignoring the contents of the page, this number is to be expected. There are portions of the chapter which focus on action, and others which focus on dialogue. It's best not to overwhelm your readers with too much text. By comparison, the mandatory dialogue in the game's first area with its main cast, Neighbor's Room, totals 241 words. That's nearly a quarter, and that's only the mandatory dialogue for the first room.
You never think these things through.
It's an RPG. You're meant to read a lot. I think people forget just how wordy this game is. And when you factor in description text and optional text, the amount of text in the game simply balloons in size. For the manga to keep up and not be dreadfully...
Yeah, Omori is like a giant feast of a game. Like, you can tell that they got a lot of their Kickstarter goals when you play that, where it's like, oh dang, there's like an orange desert I don't even have to go to. Like, this is insane. There's optional bosses everywhere. It's just awesome.
Boring. It needs to cut down on the number of words so as not to move at a snail's pace.
It's so basic.
Now, perhaps you're still not convinced. Well, let's revisit the points I brought up earlier with interactivity, cut content, and action. Already, most of these are rendered useless for a manga adaptation. When talking about cut content specifically, it's not always just about optional stuff, but also mandatory parts of the game. An easy example would be the photo album. It's an important plot device and allows the player to grow attached to the game's main cast. You will have multiple opportunities to look through it and rearrange it. Although these minigames are tedious, they are necessary for drilling the importance of the photo album into a player's head. Recall all the time spent exploring and fighting. These take up much of your time and are crucial for fleshing out a world just beyond the main plot. This is applicable both to headspace.
I think everyone hates this, but can we all just... Oh god, it's hard to rewind such a big... Can we all agree that these moving clouds in this section are such an eyesore? Like, they should have had more transparency or something, but they just look so ass ugly. It's crazy.
Take up much of your time and are crucial for fleshing out a world just beyond the main plot. This is applicable both to Headspace and Faraway Town. If these are not minimized in the manga, it will be slow. However, the most disproportionately affected parts of the game are its dungeons. If they are as slow as they are in the game, they are purposeless without the interactivity the game provides. This holds true in many RPGs, not just OMORI. This all contributes to the pacing of the story being wildly thrown off. Don't be surprised if it's going a little too fast for your liking. But recall, that's how these stories work. They're a slow burn, lots of dialogue and character interaction, but ultimately providing a high payoff. I've only really seen this type of storytelling critiqued by those who constantly need stimulation to keep themselves entertained. Take your time.
Man, I should take a shot every time I see that gif.
If the manga is going to have any chance of standing apart from its source material, horror is the way how. Horror lends itself well to a manga. The high contrast of black and white and the detailed illustrations can paint a disturbing picture. Famous examples include PTSD Radio and Uzumaki. The official manga, in what little we have of it so far, has indeed been praised for its horror panels, and I do hope that these panels become more frequent. The psychological horror aspect of OMORI is but a fraction of the game, yet it's notably important. But don't confuse spooky drawings with being an adequate replacement for what the game offers. Horror overlaps greatly with what I've discussed already: music, color, and interactivity. Music and color especially contribute greatly to horror. OMORI is not a true horror game by any means, but I don't think I need to explain why music and color are so useful to horror games. However, interactivity is king. Horror games are popular for that reason. Though RPG Maker is limited, it can still convey a lot. Games like OMORI exist for that purpose.
What the hell?
There is a surprising
Wait, that purple guy isn't... that guy's not just a meme? He's actually supposed to be scary. I've seen that guy's face in emotes and Discord servers. Hold on.
However, interactivity is king. Horror games are popular for that reason. Though RPG Maker is limited, it can still convey a lot. Games like OMORI exist.
Okay. I guess if I didn't have the context of memes and stuff, that probably would be a little scary. But for me, I can't really get invested in it. It's because I've seen this guy's face as a meme so much.
Just for that purpose. There is a surprising amount of tension that can be created by having the player explore a world of some simple drawings and music. The key is atmosphere. There's that word again. Fear and hunger.
Oh god. You know, when people said what the viewer can imagine is scarier than anything that the writer can actually put in the game, I believed that until I played Fear and Hunger, and then I was like, oh my god, this is scary as hell. Also, shoutouts to him for finding the one bit of Fear and Hunger gameplay that doesn't have a... well, yeah.
Yume Nikki. Off. Hello, Charlotte.
Oh, I'm gonna look away from the screen for a tiny bit because I don't want this spoiled for me.
Hylex.
Best walk cycle in the game, by the way.
These are all RPG Maker games I think of when it comes to having a rich atmosphere, especially Hylex. Black Space is the place in the OMORI for atmosphere, which I've already discussed, but I wish to emphasize the sheer variety that it has. Take note of the music, coloring, and environment during these examples, and how they make you feel.
I think Black Space and Black Space 2 are just like, yeah, just any extra creepy thing you can think of, we'll throw it in there, and maybe the player will run into it, maybe they won't. There won't be a cutting room floor.
It's significant to let the player breathe and have them interpret the situation, instead of always spoon-feeding them information. There are other parts of the game which make use of the player's anticipation that something is off. When you wake up for the first time and walk downstairs, it's far longer and creepier of an approach than you'd expect, until suddenly... In general,
oh yeah, that hand is creepy.
At times. After defeating Captain Spaceboy, the world will dim and the music slows down, with your friends disappearing suddenly. This happens a couple of times throughout the game. My favorite example would be the bathroom mirrors. It's fun to see how these change throughout the game depending on what the player does. Again, I must stress that Manga isn't completely limited in its ability to portray horror, but the game has access to music, color, and interactivity, allowing it.
You know, a cool detail I found out through one of Fade's videos is when Basil disappears, if you look at the borders on the edge of the screen in the console version, one of them will have Basil on it, but he'll fade from it after they forget who he is, which is a really cool little detail right there.
You get to hit far harder. Couple that with the player-controlled silent protagonist, it's a match made in heaven that cannot be replicated in a manga. Let's recap what we learned so far. We have removed the story's ability to effectively portray a true silent protagonist. We have removed Omori's phenomenal.
Now that I think about it, a good portion of this video is just an Omori glaze fest, which is totally fine. It's one of my favorite games. And it reinforces my point where it's like, it's okay if you don't like Omori as a game story-wise or whatever, but whenever people say Omori's not that deep, oh my, like people just really, really hate it. I'm not talking about Omori hater. I'm talking about people who like actually hate the game. There's people who are like, oh, it's not that deep. I hate OmoCat. I hate this game. It sucks. I'm like, look at all the stuff this game does. Look at all the small touches, all the musical cues, all the little subtle, like this guy just pointed out, all the color and sound work. Even if someone really disliked Omori, I feel like they should at least concede that a ton of love and detail is packed into it.
Almost soundtrack and the intricacies of its sound design. We have removed all color from the story. Gone are its various applications and nuances. We have removed the ability to interact with and explore Omori's vast world. We have removed additional story content in order to streamline the main plot. We have removed Omori's combat, replacing it with flavorless and generic action sequences. We have removed the story's ability to build itself up properly with dialogue and gameplay, crippling its pacing. And we have removed much of the impact of Omori's horror and atmosphere. Is this the adaptation you want? Observe the sheer number of changes we made.
No silent protagonists. Well, Sunny's been pretty silent so far. No music, no color, no interactivity, no optional/padded content. No combat, no good pacing, no good atmosphere, neutered horror. I mean, some of these are good. Like, I mean, no combat, no optional padded content isn't going to matter as much for a manga or whatever, but yeah.
Must make, with the story getting weaker each time we do so.
I really admire how you stack the odds against yourself. Yeah, make things challenging.
This is not Omori, this is a Spark Notes retelling. Did you honestly think a manga could simply adapt to everything needing to be changed? No. People will love and cherish Omori, but this isn't it. But perhaps you're still not convinced. Perhaps what you need is a concrete example. After all, the manga isn't finished yet. Let's forget about Omori for a second and think about another RPG manga adaptation. Take the manga of the hugely popular JRPG Persona 5. Persona 5 is an enormous game, taking around 100 hours for a single playthrough. It features an enormous catalog of content and its own gameplay mechanics. These two.
Can you romance the doctor in that game? I think you can. I need to play that then.
Games are very different, but they are both story-rich RPGs of nuanced topics. So let's take the Persona 5 manga as an example of how such a rich game can be hollowed out when forced into a medium it was not designed for. Persona 5's own silent protagonist, Joker, is unsurprisingly forced to speak in the manga. Fortunately, this is not a bad change, as unlike Sunny, Joker never needed to be silent, and the game doesn't revolve around him nearly as much as Sunny. Everything else, though, doesn't look too good. The game's music, perhaps its most famous quality, is gone. The game's iconic art style and color palette, also gone.
And it's gone.
The original game works.
If I ever did play Persona 5, because I played it a tiny bit a while ago, I would want to play the normal version and not the Royal Edition, because I heard the Royal Edition makes some of the difficulty unnecessarily easy, which I need to have a little bit of pushback in my JRPGs, otherwise I don't get entertained. So I would probably just do that. But, you know, beautiful game. Lots of good girls in it too, as to be expected from a Persona title.
It's on a calendar system, forcing the player to plan out their actions each day. This time management aspect is naturally gone along with the gameplay. The unique character choices, as well as the abundance of optional content that the Persona series is known for, is either removed entirely or awkwardly shoehorned into the main story. The main RPG combat itself is purposeless, gone is the customizability the game offers. Instead, we get to read action sequences which offer artificial tension. To keep the plot going steadily, dungeons which would take the player hours to complete have been condensed into a few minutes worth of reading,
Ooh, Futaba looks good in the Egyptian attire or whatever.
dramatically altering the pacing of the story. And lastly, the game's atmosphere is hindered greatly by the lack of music and free roaming. Now, this is not to say that Persona 5 manga doesn't have its own merits. After all, this video is about OMORI, not Persona 5.
The manga OMORI was controversial.
He's using Sweetheart the Best video. That's awesome. That is fantastic.
Some people on Twitter started accusing the artist of
game can be limited to such an extreme extent through a change of mediums. And that's only one example.
This guy's just like, you hate the mangaka because she drew Shotokan. I hate her because she made a bad manga. We are not the same. That's this guy's stance.
I will say it again. The OMORI manga is not a different way of experiencing the story. It's just worse. Well, that's the end of my argument. I have nothing more to tell you. If you've clicked on this video because of the title and thumbnail, you're free to leave now.
But there's still so much of the video left.
The video isn't over just yet. If you still have the time, I would like to talk about a few more things.
I'd like to talk to you a lot more about this. Would you be interested in reading some of my literature?
Something you may wonder is that if OMORI was made with the conscious and very deliberate decision to be a video game and not a graphic novel as originally intended, then why the manga? Luckily, there is a useful philosophical rule for a conundrum like this, and it's known as Heinlein's razor. It stipulates that, never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity, but don't rule out malice. So, is the manga
I think he made up that last part.
a byproduct of malice or stupidity? Both. OMOCAT is many things. A game developer, a manager, a brand, but above all else, they are an artist. OMORI as a character was created during her years in college. While she studied, you guessed it, art. And how do artists make their money? They sell their artwork. If you search up OMOCAT, the first thing you'll see is her shop. And if you go to her main website, it's effectively one big art portfolio. Think about why OMORI had an art exhibition in the first place.
That's kind of what it's a double-edged sword because it makes OMORI an expensive thing to be a fan of, but the OMOCAT having an art background lets her make some really cool merch and do some cool events like the cafe and the exhibit or whatever.
Context, an art gallery may be a strange place to host artwork from an indie game, but when you consider OMOCAT's background in art, it makes perfect sense.
That's partially because he's only made 2 videos of Eddie. Maybe he'll make more. Hopefully not, because he'll probably get more subscribers than me very quickly.
This is how OMOCAT makes her money, and this is how OMOCAT was able to garner support for her game. If you look back at OMORI's oldest trailer, you'll notice that almost no gameplay is shown. It's essentially all art. In a 2014 Tokusatsu Network article, in addition to advertising her upcoming game, she, oh look, eagerly advertises her own apparel. And much like her other work, OMORI is an art piece. And you know what that means?
Hello, I like money.
It's as simple as that. OMORI has exploded not just as a game, but also as a brand. It's a fine addition to her collection. Considering how hard we worked to make this game, why not capitalize on it? Take, for example, the console re-releases. It's just the same game with a few extra stuff, but with more bugs, at a markup, and also mysteriously removed with no explanation. Now, I'm not really a merch guy, you know? But some of these prices, man, $70 for an art book, are you serious? Let me just...
They are pretty expensive. No one can argue that.
To make matters worse, most of OMORI's audience is rather young. Combine that with a passionate fan base, and you have the perfect recipe for a cash cow. And so goes the manga. OMORI is extremely popular in Japan. I'm talking like most of the animations I can find are Japanese.
In Japan, the Nintendo Switch version of OMORI sold 2,903 physical copies within its first week of release, making it the 19th best-selling retail game of the week in the country. That's a very particular award. I suppose 2,903 physical copies is impressive considering most of them are going to be digital.
And don't forget, a lot of OMORI's collabs have been Japanese exclusives. After all, we've had not 1, but 2 concerts in Japan. And when considering the popularity of manga, especially in its native country, it's the perfect opportunity. Now, from a business perspective, I understand Omokat's decision, but as a consumer, don't forget the manga is only officially available in the US and Japan, even though the digital scans are so far free. And my eternal reward for helping others to see it was to get this. Okay, that's malice, but what about stupidity? Omokat has been infatuated with Japanese media for decades. Anime has influenced her artwork enormously, and she has no shame in admitting that. As for manga, she had a knack for drawing webcomics well before OMORI. Considering Omokat's love for all things Japan and her past work, this is, in all likelihood, a dream come true for her. I, of course, still uphold this to be an unbelievably stupid decision on Omokat's part, as it spoils the authenticity of the game. But who am I to judge?
Money! Money!
There it is.
Let's abandon our hypothetical manga and return to the real manga at hand. After all, I've been using its panels for all of this video. Since we've already established how it would always fall short of an adaptation no matter what, let's forget about the source material and judge it purely on its own merits. Currently, only 2 chapters have been released. Once this video is uploaded, there should be 3. By the time you've clicked on this video, who knows how many there will be. I can't be bothered to give a full synopsis, so I'll give a brief summary. Chapter 1 introduces us to Sunny, a scared shut-in let outside by his friend Kel. After exploring town, he has a scuffle with his childhood friend Aubrey, panics, and is led into his dream world where we get to meet all his friends. In this world, a similar looking character named OMORI takes his place. His sister has also passed away and has manifested into this spooky monster. Chapter 2 continues in said dream world.
That was a really good frame though, when Mari was like really big. Seeing Hell Mari so big was pretty cool.
Omori and Co fight a character named Boss, with Basil being dragged somewhere. Sunny wakes up and him and Kel talk to the real Basil, promising Basil to return his photo album that Aubrey had stolen. We later see Aubrey throw said photo album out. Admittedly, some of the paneling is pretty neat, and I like the mannerisms that the characters have. As for the bad stuff...
As the eldest, wisest, and most winsome, plays with the gang and settles spats between, he'll help you. Oh, he doesn't like that they're taken straight from the guidebook and put into the manga summary or whatever.
My thoughts? It's just mediocre. Who would have guessed? Now I'm going to say something that may shock you. People are being too harsh. That's rich from me.
Wow, that is... I agree. I'm amazed that he said that. He's probably mostly bad that people are just crapping on the mangaka.
I know. I've seen it all. Criticism of the pacing, art, the mishmash of the story's events. Believe me, I get it.
Let the hate flow through you.
But these are all wrong reasons to hate the manga, especially as it only has 2 chapters to work with.
Having the first Headspace arc happen in the middle of the first real world arc was a horrible choice in my opinion.
There's a problem that people have and it's the pace. Oh. I feel like there has to be a reason for why they're showing us the events in this way.
How can you people be so...
He uses me as the bad example. He uses me as the oblivious example.
smart and yet so stupid?
I hate the manga more than anyone else, but much like a terrible car crash, I can't help but look out of curiosity. And just like a car crash, this was entirely preventable. Why are so many people disappointed? This is what you wanted, right? I understand all of this is very condescending, but you must look at the bigger picture here. The manga can never be good. You're more than welcome to rewatch this video to learn as to why. I've witnessed a few people reach enlightenment, but I wish people had realized this back in November when it mattered. I cannot wait to watch slop video essays pretending like this is actually a good idea. There's nothing wrong with being content with what you have.
Oh, fun fact!
Believe it or not, we already have 2 OMORI comics by Omokat. They're about the birthdays of Omori and Aubrey. I don't blame you if you're unaware of these, as they're not well advertised, and they're also very short.
Yeah, no, I'll have to read those.
But they're proof of concept. I hate the hyper-commercialization of this game, but if we're committed to the idea of an OMORI manga, it can potentially work with this one simple trick. Don't try to adapt the game. That's it. Instead of trying to retell the game's story and inevitably falling short, why not try to tell a different story? This is not a foreign concept. Fanfiction authors are light years ahead of the curve in this aspect, even if most of them can't write to save their lives. Because we are no longer tied to the game...
Wait, what did he say? Hold on.
Even if most of them...
what is this this fanfic? Sunny and Basil obviously forget at the end of the game. When will OMORI fans realize this? Oh man, you know, that would be awesome if that happened. I'm not sure if I agree that they do though.
Them can't write to save their lives. Because we are no longer tied to the game, suddenly a manga as a medium becomes work.
But he might have been being sarcastic there.
While think about how artistically unique an OMORI spin-off manga could be. The sky's the limit, really. Why not make Basil the main character? Fans have been asking for a Basil-centric story for years.
Arrow keys? What the hell are those?
And best of all, it has the potential of recontextualizing his appearance in the main story. After all, despite his importance, his screen time is fairly limited. And it's not like this wouldn't be a profitable decision. After all, Basil is a very...
Wait, I missed more subtitles on.
All despite his importance, his screen time is...
Oh, I forgot to use arrows again.
fairly limited. And it's not like...
Exploiting the lunacy of pro shippers is a wise business strategy. I like how he just says Sunflower is a pro ship here.
This wouldn't be a profitable decision. After all, Basil is a very popular character, perhaps a little too popular for his own good. It baffles me that out of all the options we could have chosen, they picked the most boring and the most uninspired. But I don't want new content anyway, so this is fine by me.
There's the GIF again.
I've kicked this can down the proverbial road that is this video for a good reason, as this ties into the main thesis I'm trying to argue for.
Is he able to play the caretaker without getting a copyright strike? I didn't know that was I didn't know you could do that.
Okay, let's face it. At least when discussing the world outside Japan, anime is drastically more popular than manga. It's so popular that even Western corporate giants have started to take notice. Here's a fact. Most OMORI fans only pretend to care about the manga. What people really want is an OMORI anime.
I mean, if I think something's bad, I'll just straight up say it's bad. I know I was huffing some copium on the first manga chapter video, but I did genuinely think that because of how fast the first chapter was. I genuinely thought they might have been doing a Scott Pilgrim Takes Off thing where the story just completely upends itself or whatever. But yeah, no, I'll totally admit when an OMORI themed thing is bad. It does no good to pretend to like something and shovel it down.
Kawaii, neko girls, mia, rar.
And I do like myself some anime.
That was pretty good. Let's rewind it by... Hey, how do I rewind stuff again? Oh yeah, we use the mouse. Hold on. Let's see. Go right there. Yeah, there we go.
Here about the manga. What people really want is an OMORI anime.
Kawaii, neko girls, mia, rar.
And I do like myself some anime. I don't think this will ever happen, and God forbid that it does. It will almost certainly be rushed and underfunded. However, the popularity of such an idea cannot be overstated. For whatever reason, people are now under the impression that since an OMORI manga now exists, an anime adaptation is now plausible. You guys do realize that not every anime is an adaptation of a manga, right? Besides, we already have the original source material, the game, so why not just cut out the middleman? Anyways, when you look at OMORI fan animations, it's easy to understand the appeal. Especially these Evangelion-style animations by Sapgoon. Great name, by the way. And make no mistake, these animations are fantastic and are able to breathe life into the story in ways RPG Maker simply can't. But just like the manga, an anime is a terrible idea that can't work by virtue of OMORI being a video game. Although an animated retelling of the story would at least now be able to take full advantage of music and color, it will now have to contend with pacing, shot composition, voice acting, animation, detailing, and plenty more. The game was not written with all this in mind. Recall every single reason I've listed as to why the manga is a bad idea. The same still applies. This is ridiculous. Look, I get it. This stuff looks cool, and it's fun to fantasize about your favorite story being told through anime. OMORI is far from unique in this regard. It's easy to get disillusioned by certain fan animations which animate a portion of the game or derive inspiration from it. And although these can look great if executed properly, we are not adapting a small segment of the game. Rather, we are adapting the whole of the game, 30 hours worth of content. Please give this careful thought and understand why the source material worked to begin with. These are two very different mediums. it's not as cool as you may.
Yeah, I know that God of War is getting a live-action adaptation soon, and I'm very scared about that.
OMORI was made to be a game.
Here we go again.
Writing a game is hard, and so is writing a manga.
You gotta admit, though, the manga logo was pretty cool. You know it's bad when that's probably the only positive thing you would ever say about it. But maybe I'm just staring at the OMORI logo too much, but I thought that was pretty cool when they unveiled it.
Stories are not conceived overnight. They are built, some of years, if not decades, of work put into them. So, when a task comes to intersect these two wildly different forms of storytelling expression, you have to think about it carefully. It can be done, but it really does depend on the story you wish to tell. Games like OMORI are those which I, and many others, hold to a higher standard. It is a game that has captivated the imagination of plenty and touched the hearts of even more. But it is not magic. Like all other stories, it was carefully built to be a video game. Not a manga, not an anime, a video game. And some games can't be adapted. And when the concept itself is broken, it matters not if the manga is far from complete. Truth be told, I am disappointed. I am disappointed that people will inevitably read it instead of playing the game first. I am disappointed that people are focusing on frivolous drama. I am disappointed that people still believe it can work. And I am most disappointed of all that people overwhelmingly welcomed the manga to begin with, instead of questioning whether or not this was a good idea.
People can never be happy like we got no more manga. Can we just be happy about that?
So very disappointed.
Once again, I kind of agree with him. I don't like when people just blindly praise new content in any form. But at the same time, I think he's taking it in the extreme other direction where it's like, okay, you don't have to like the manga, but you obviously, it's taking up a lot of energy for you as well, just in the opposite direction. But yeah, no, that did bother me when people were just like, can we just be grateful that there's a manga at all? Let's just accept it with open arms and not critique it at all. I didn't like that either.
I must thank you for listening to my boring diatribe on a 3.5-year-old indie game. But, if anything, the OMORI manga is a case study of what happens when a good game becomes a little too profitable.
What inspired you to build a second right next door to the original?
Money!
Stale and dull of all the meaning the original once had. Commercialized because people will buy it up. Just because you like...
Well, commercialized because those figurines are awesome. And even if they're a little expensive, I bought them because I love the game and I think they're adorable. But, yeah, no, it is definitely a very corporate decision.
Like a piece of art, you shouldn't automatically like all of its derivatives. You're free to like it, that's fine. But it is a soulless cash grab, undeniably so. The manga was never needed. It's not a different way to experience the story, it's just worse. If you have a friend that's interested in OMORI, do them a favor and buy them the game. I'd even suggest watching them as they play it. I can promise you they'll have a worthwhile experience. I cannot promise the same for the manga. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.
Credits? Oh, he used paint.net. Alright, so I think this guy intensely dislikes my videos. But I did really like that. I do think there are moments where he's kind of pearl clutching a bit at like the purity of OMORI, like it can never be expanded with anything just because he dislikes it. But yeah, no, I do think an OMORI manga would have been better either not existing or if there was a spin-off or just told some other tale. Because like he said, it was designed from the ground up to be a video game. Or even worse, it was a comic first and then they said this should become a video game. But yeah, no, I don't... Maybe it was copium when I was talking about Chapter 1, but I did legit think that. I did legit think, oh, this is moving really fast. There could be some changes coming on later. Definitely would have benefited, because I know there's only going to be 7 volumes of the manga total. Probably would have benefited from having even more. Either way, good video, even good, very good thumbnail too. He obviously put a lot of time into that. I think he'll watch this and probably respond at some point. So when he does that, maybe I'll let you guys know. What do you think of an anime, of an OMORI anime? I think that would probably just run into a lot of the... I think it would run into a lot of the issues that this guy pointed out with the manga, where it would just be compared over and over. And it's like, why would we need to revisit something that was already told so well in the game? But at the same time, I think animated Omori stuff should tell completely different like stuff. Maybe fill in the gaps. Like there was that one animatic that showed Kim and Aubrey becoming friends. That was really cool. So I'm like, if you're going to do an adaptation, maybe show something completely different. Spaz says he is a Puritan through and through, and he will admit that, but he also understands new content can be good. He just thinks this isn't it. Boss, you want to play Death by AI in the Discord? Nah, not right now. I need to work on the Core Keeper video. I need to release that in like 3 days. It's a sponsored video. Need to get it out on time. Sprout moles are best written characters in the game. Voice acted playthroughs? Yeah, those are cool. Alright, well, either way, really good video. That was fun to watch. Yeah, go ahead and leave a comment on this guy's video. My opinion is that an anime would be good if they can get really creative with the style and go crazy for maybe a psychological scary thriller thing. Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, it would come down to like, what are the advantages? This kind of boils down to, this has a lot of the same, now that I think about it, a lot of the stuff he talked about is the same problems as adapting Watchmen as a comic to a movie. There's a lot of times where Watchmen uses the medium of comics to tell its story, and they like rearrange the panels in really cool ways. And then when it was a movie, a lot of that couldn't be done. But yeah, no, good video. I don't agree with all of it. But I'll get back to making slop. Alright, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll have a new video up for you very soon. Boo-bye.